Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I am delighted to be here for Wednesday Wisdom webinar. Um, I so appreciate everyone taking the time out to listen, so I hope you find value. If you have any questions, email, type, and we can even follow up. So let's get started. Today, we are going to learn how to change the networking narrative. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because as an introvert, as a mom of three, and woman in finance, I realized that the mere thought of attending a networking event would give me heart palpitations. So I knew that I had to do something different and I needed to think different. So here we are. We're going to learn how to change the networking narrative. So not everything, this is one of my favorite quotes. I am a numbers girl, but I truly believe that not everything that can be counted counts. And not everything that counts can be counted. How do you measure trust? How do you measure friendship? How do you measure the ability to connect and engage and expand your network? Next slide, please. So in our 30 minutes, here is our agenda. Networking myths versus reality. Then what is networking? Some strategies to make in-person networking more effective. And if it's hard for you to attend an in-person networking, how you can be effective online. Action items and follow-up. And then a couple success stories, questions, and discussion. So let's dispel some networking myths. Myths versus reality. Now, I just want to say, my perception, your perception is our reality, it's your reality. But when we think networking, what comes to mind could mean business mixer, business networking international, business cards, people meeting, direct sales, whatever the case might be. I want you to think in your mind when you hear networking, what comes to mind. And if we were live and captive, this is interactive, but I don't see your beautiful faces, I would ask for audience participation. So it's okay if you have experienced something negative or have a negative experience. We need to discuss that, and then we just got to get rid of it. So what else comes to mind? Maybe you met someone, had a positive experience and met somebody amazing, or had a reception at a wonderful restaurant. So it's so important that we think about our experiences. Next slide, please. So if you were live and captive in front of me, I'd ask what each of you hope to learn today, but what I hope to give to all of you is the confidence to try something new and change that networking narrative. It is not just about going out there and grabbing a lot of business cards. It is about being more intentional and having connections and conversations, or conversations that lead to connections. So I hope to help you change this networking narrative, and please stay in touch with me. You can email me, you can text me. I want to hear your success stories, and I want to help coach you through this because I've been there too. Next slide, please. This is one of my favorite. Networking isn't effective. I went to this event and I didn't meet anybody new. Now, there could be some truth to that, because if you went to an event and you saw a room full of strangers, and then you saw the one person you knew, of course it felt comfortable for you to connect with that person. Sometimes the reason why networking isn't effective is maybe we didn't approach the event with the intent. So here's what I mean. What was it? What were you trying to accomplish? So with anything, you want to have a goal. So is your goal to have fun? Is your goal to Meet someone. There's nothing wrong if you want to meet someone after work and have some drinks and have some fun. But if your goal was, gosh, you know what, I want to attend this event and get continuing education or maybe learn more about this company, and you were not able to accomplish it, of course you're going to think it wasn't effective. Disappointment occurs when your expectation doesn't meet the outcome. So it's important that you go to a networking event with reasonable expectations. And we will cover that a little bit more. Next myth, networking is only for salespeople. So I put this picture in because this is exactly how I had the opportunity to meet Stacy. I have so much respect for Stacy. I'm a little bit starstruck. This is Charlie Henneman at the CFA Institute Private Wealth Conference. And Stacy, Francis, and I participated on a panel. Charlie's in charge of the conference. And the day of the conference, I had my business partner take this picture. So I met Charlie. I mean, I'm smiling. I don't personally think this is the best picture, but I put it in here because I'm practicing what I preach. I met Stacy in person at this conference, and then Charlie reached out to me. He's the man who invited me. And I put this in the presentation because I actually never met Charlie. I connected with him online, and I met him in Charlottesville, and then I met him at this conference. And so it's the little conversations and the data points that can lead to bigger opportunities. So networking is not just for salespeople. Networking or building connections and conversations for everybody. Even my 13-year-old is networking. They're talking about the swim coach, or they talk about the teachers. We talk about which dry cleaner. We talk about what skincare works. When we are sharing information to help someone else, that's networking. Another networking myth is, so networking is not only for salespeople. I can't be a successful networker. Now, you may think you're not successful because you may be defining success based on someone else's definition. So when I go to a networking event, I certainly don't grab 20 business cards. So if somebody's definition of success is to grab as many business cards as possible and get as many LinkedIn connections as possible, if I'm using their definition, I probably would be considered a failure, or I would not be considered successful. What I do when I enter networking events, or an event where there's opportunity to build conversations and connections, I think about, it's not so much that I have low expectations. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on myself. I just want to enjoy the event, meet people, listen, and then follow up. So the other thing that I mentioned I wanted to do at the beginning is I want you to change the narrative, but I want you to know that you are empowered to decide what success means to you. And I think that's really important. Our next myth, networking is a waste of time. Now, I live in Maryland, which is not far from DC, but it can take a long time. I'm probably not going to go to DC for a networking event after work because it would just take a long time to get into the city, then out of the city. So time is a very precious commodity. If we don't go into something with reasonable expectations and we didn't have a meaningful conversation or connection, we could have been doing something else. We could have been working, taking care of our family, getting a good workout in. So we only have so much time. It's really important that we understand when we're looking at an event. If we're thinking, this is just an example, if you wanted to find out what it means to be a professional chef or prepare catered meals, you want to make sure that you're going to events where people who are interested in that or people who are doing that are there. If you go to an event and it doesn't align with what you're trying to accomplish, then it very well could be a waste of time. So we have another myth, I believe. Quantity is most important. It's not how many people you've met or the number of cards collected. It's more meaningful to develop the time to have a meaningful friendship. So I will give you an example of what I mean. So I have a friend, and he's later on in this presentation, John Kaiser, who wrote a book. And he asked me to read his book and write a review. My review is on Amazon, but also he took what I said and put it in his book. He invited me to his book party. I didn't know anybody there. It wasn't a networking event, but I kind of made it a networking event because I had the opportunity to connect with people. So the purpose of that event was to celebrate the success of his book, the book launch. But it was not a networking event, but it was a meaningful event for me because I got to meet his co-author and I got to meet other people that were friends and supporters. So I didn't grab 20 business cards. I probably had 3 meaningful interactions. So I say that to say you can network anywhere. It doesn't have to be a full-blown networking event. Next slide, please. What is networking? So the first thing that was important to do is I thought it was important to just dispel some of the myths and put everything out there. Networking, there is a formal definition of networking, as we will see on the next slide. It is the exchange of information or services among individuals or institutions, specifically, bottom line, to develop productive relationships that can lead to getting a job or business. Now, what's interesting, that is how networking is defined. When you're networking, I don't want you to think about, gosh, I don't want to work with that person. They're not senior. They're not in a position to hire me. With networking, you want to think about the connections. If it is a company that you're interested in and it's not someone who's in a position to hire you, that is still a meaningful connection for you. Marguerita's definition of networking is just like what's on this slide, but the conversations and connections to help you grow and develop professionally and personally. So we can advance to the next slide. Why networking? Well, Stacy and Rita, we help clients make smart choices with their money. We educate and empower clients, particularly women. And Daniel Kahneman is a psychologist. He does a lot with behavioral finance. And this is very interesting. People would rather do business with someone they like and trust, even if the products may cost more. So what does that have to do with this Wednesday Wisdom webinar, Rita? It's important to network and expand your community because you don't want to limit your growth. So think of it like this. The more we share, the more we learn from one another. The more we learn from another, the more we expand our knowledge base, expand our networks, and we have more opportunities to grow and develop as professionals. Now, I know it can be overwhelming to have a lot of opportunity, but it sure beats the alternative, which means we don't have a lot of choice. So this is why we want to network. The speed of trust and connection, it is the one thing that changes everything. So networking is at the center of everything. We can continue. So it is true, I have heard this and I do believe it. The stronger your, so you don't want to measure your self-worth by your net worth, but your network can increase your net worth. So a strong network is something very, very powerful. So when I left the large firm that I used to work with for 14 years, I was only allowed to leave with 2 things: a list of my client's name, email address, telephone number, and address. I was only allowed to leave with 2 of those lists, one for the sales manager and one for me. I couldn't take any client files or anything. My network that I had built over 14 years was strong. And so when I launched my own independent firm, even if some people didn't feel comfortable moving, eventually they did because the power of the network. So networking does not necessarily guarantee success, but it sure can't hurt. Can you go to the next slide? Networking expands our life opportunities. So it's not just about business. What is this picture? These are 3 young adult children that love the strings instrument. So it is David Carpenter, Sean Carpenter in the middle, and his sister Lauren Carpenter. And they collect strings instruments. My son played viola, and I was able to connect and engage in a meaningful conversation just because of my love for classical music. I don't know how to play viola, but it isn't just always about business. So that's why I put this in there. I don't know how to play viola, but that doesn't mean I cannot engage in meaningful conversation and build trust and connections with people who collect these beautiful instruments and play in a string quartet. So it expands our opportunities. Next. So we alluded to this a little bit earlier. When we're networking, what do we want to achieve? Where do my colleagues or prospects or clients go to network? What business organizations would benefit from my business? And how can I build my personal and business's image? And should I volunteer in the community? So you don't have to just network for business. You can network for personal reasons. So for example, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, not to bore you. You know I'm a certified financial planner. You know I'm passionate about women and girls. So I am running the Marine Corps Marathon as a charity runner for girls here in DC. I went to an event, and it wasn't really about business. What did I want to achieve? The purposes of that event was for me to learn, okay, Rita, you can run 13 miles, a half marathon, but a full marathon, you're going to need a little bit more help. So the purpose of me going to an event was to identify the right running program for me. I travel a lot. Sometimes my schedule's erratic, so I don't need anyone to shame me. I also find value in weekly emails, so I can do the training program on my own. So I basically applied networking to a personal situation. So now we'll tie it to business. What do I want to achieve? I may want to pursue higher education. I'm going to go to an open house about a program to earn a credential. Or I'm going to join a professional association. So these are questions you can think about. And not every question is going to pertain to you in every situation. So we go to the next slide. This is, I put these in here because this is about me and just being in my community. So to the left, it's me with Gabriel. Gabriel he just graduated, and he is a financial planning student. So I like to give back to my community and support the next generation of aspiring planners. That is my youngest daughter. We are at Georgetown University, where I completed CFP program. I also wanted that picture because Carolina will never wear a dress. That was special to me. You go to the next slide. This book was very helpful to me. So Adam Grant, professor of organizational psychology out of Wharton, he says that there's basically 3 types of people in this world. There are givers, so people who are very giving, there are takers, and then there's matchers. And what does this have to do with networking? Networking isn't so much about getting, it's about giving, and there's reciprocity. And he talks about how one of the most successful venture capitalists in Silicon Valley was very much a giver and a matcher. Next slide. So this is just a visual that networking, just to remind you, is about connections and building relationships. And women, we are really good at that. It doesn't mean men aren't good, but this is an area where we really excel. Can continue. in-person networking. So here we are. I can continue. Vern Hayden. Vern Hayden is a highly respected financial planner. And this is what Vern says. Social media cannot replace meeting someone in person, but it can enhance it. And so Vern said that you can't hide behind your computer. If you're really going to meet someone, you're going to meet them. So I thought it was important. Part of networking is in person. Can you go to the next slide? Body language is very important. When you're meeting someone, within a few seconds, the word prejudice, your people will prejudge you. So just make sure that, you know, when you are attending an event that it's okay to be shy. We've all been there, but make sure your body language is such that it's inviting people to start a conversation with you. We get one first impression. Next slide. Again, eye contact, our movement, stand tall. My mom is right. The Catholic nuns are right. You have to stand tall, no slouching. Posture, and you know what? A smile is just so opening. If you don't know anybody, you can always smile and say, hey, let's get a drink or something. Next slide. So to network, people say, you know what, you need to come out of your comfort zone. I think that's true, but you also want to put yourself in a place where you know you're going to succeed. So if it's hard for you to go to an event and be like a bunch of new people, then maybe you pick one person, you have a conversation with them, and then you go up and you meet somebody else. It does require you to leave your comfort zone and challenge yourself, but you don't want to do it in a way where like you're going to set yourself up for failure. Next slide. So the financial planner, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. So I've always said this, as long as you didn't lie, cheat, or steal, what's the worst that can happen? And I'm just going to confess, there are times, you know, particularly being a woman in finance, you know, there's a lot of alcohol after a conference. Sometimes people don't act appropriately. There's times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get out of here. I'm going to walk to the bathroom and come back. So make sure that you prepare your remarks, how you're going to introduce yourself. And that's what we're going to get to in a couple of slides. So here we are. When you're at a conference, I know people are wearing name tags, or if you're at an event, these are open-ended questions where you don't necessarily have to feel like it's an interrogation. So tell me your role at Savvy Ladies. What do you most like about New York City? It's great to meet you if you're at a conference. What session are you most looking forward to attending? The conference is like in progress. What speaker have you enjoyed most? So you don't have to, when you're asking open-ended questions, particularly me, I'm an introvert, believe it or not. When I ask a lot of open-ended questions, I don't have to think about what I have to say because they're doing all the talking. And then that can lead to further discussion. So this is me at the financial planning conference in between the girls from Investopedia. You can go to the next slide. So commit to the networking plan. You know, set a goal. You know, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to go to one event a month. That's what I mean by commit. And if you go to an event and you didn't meet that many new people, don't stop. You just have to stick to it and adjust what you're doing, but at least commit to expanding your network. Or at least commit to expanding your network to have more conversations and connections. Thanks. So this is what we're saying. Set a goal, carry your business cards. If that's not appropriate, you have an electronic business card or LinkedIn, which we're going to get to. Make sure that you take time to follow up. And you don't have to follow up with everybody, but if you're going to follow up, you definitely want to follow up. Next slide, please. So we're saying be an active participant, be friendly and approachable. If you help people, the reciprocity, Adam Grant, give and take, they will help you. So this is my friend John Kaiser, the founder of Common Sense Leadership. This is what he talks about, emotional intelligence. And we can go to the next slide so you can see the visual representation. So emotional intelligence is at the center. So being self-aware, understanding, you know what, it's overwhelming for me when I go to a room and there's like 200 people and I don't know. That's okay. It's good to be aware. Understanding that that might not be an appropriate venue for us also helps us tune into it with others. If we see, hey, someone seems like, they could use just someone to keep them company, that's being socially aware. And then self-management, using our awareness so that we know, gosh, I know that that was not the best event, but I am not going to say I'm never networking again. And then encouraging others with our awareness to have a networking buddy. So John Kaiser wrote about emotional intelligence, and I went to his book signing. I met some people, so I put him in this presentation. Next slide. So this is where we're saying reciprocity. You don't want to just be a taker. How many people have it in our network? You want to be a giver. So we can continue, and I will show you some examples. Networking and mentors. There's maybe you see a friend who's good at networking. You can ask him or her to be your mentor. Or if you don't want to use the word mentor, to kind of help you, because sometimes people say mentor, it feels like it's too much of a commitment, but to help you learn how to be more effective at networking. Let's continue. So what's interesting about mentorship is, here's some myths too. Some people say you only need one mentor at a time for success. Different mentors may be able to offer you different things. Mentors do not need to be older than you. And mentorship isn't necessarily a huge waste of time, and it's not a one-way street. So I have mentored women who are older than me studying for CFP certification. I mentored this guy when I was a financial advisor with only 2 months service. He knew I was good at technology, so I helped him with technology. So if you feel like you want help in this category and you don't want to use the word mentorship, you can say to somebody, would it be okay to meet you for coffee? I really respect you. I think that you're phenomenal at X. Can I count on you to help hold me accountable? I want to reach my goal of X, and I know that I need to be better at networking. I mean, that's being very authentic. And even if that person was busy, I know that I would take time, 30 minutes, like a quarter, to help somebody. Continue. Online networking, and this is where we close. So here's some strategies for online networking. So first, we are moving online. Uber's the world's largest taxi company. Facebook is the world's most popular media company, but they don't create a lot of their content. Alibaba is most valuable retailer, and then Airbnb doesn't have any real estate. So our lives are moving online. With that in mind, so the call to action for everybody is make sure that you have, next slide please, the internet. We can go to the next slide. Social media. So the call to action is, if you are wanting to advance in your career, next slide, to have a all-star LinkedIn profile. So if you don't always carry business cards, that's okay. Having a LinkedIn profile, you can connect with people and you can send a custom message. So you can go to the next slide. First and foremost, have a nice headshot. Complete your profile. I've helped clients develop LinkedIn profiles and they've secured employment. Update your profile regularly. Like I mentioned, strive for all-star, but remember, you want to make sure that you don't treat this like Facebook, meaning you have to be a little bit more professional here and emphasize quality. Take the time to send custom messages. I know we're at 1:32, so we'll wrap up here. So engagement on LinkedIn is going to be important, and these are all your digital assets that make when you are networking in person, these resources or digital assets are doing online networking for you. And you don't have to do every single one of these. I just put them there. And then next. So ABC is not always be closing. It's always be connecting. And then here are my success stories for you. So I apologize for going just a little bit over action items and follow-up. So you have one first impression, be focused, don't give up, persistency. And then I took 2 screenshots of these most recent interactions on slides 47 and 48. So maybe it's 48 and 49. So these are ways in which you can follow up. Now I'm here to tell you, I went to a networking event. This guy was a little bit creepy. So he emailed me, he Facebook messaged me, he LinkedIn requested me and messaged me and left me a voicemail message. It is okay to have purposeful follow-up, but I think that was a little bit too much in less than 12 hours. So it's important to follow up, but don't be that guy. So now slides 48. So this is from Kathy Newman. Kathy Newman is the founder of an ETF company, and I met her for coffee on February 28th, and I followed up with her. And she said, wow, what a follow-up. Thank you. So it's important to follow up. She's a CFA charter holder. I was doing stuff with CFA Institute. I followed up. And she's older than me, so I'm teaching her how to network. Slide 49. Catherine Morrison, you know what? She's so precious. She called me a networking monster. I would have never thought I was a networking monster. But she told me that I need to write a blog on all the ways you connected with one person in about 8 hours. And she said I was reminding her the value of connections and friends. And we will close now, 1:35. If you have any questions, you can answer them. You can post them. I will do my best to answer them. If you need to jump off, in the last slide, there's my email address. You can email me. I promise I'll get back to you. I'm traveling this week, but I will acknowledge your email. So I will stop there. This is actually one of my favorite quotes. Oh, can we just have that on there? About Sarah. Sarah, founder of Spanx. Don't be intimidated by what you don't know. It could be your greatest strength. And ensure that you do things differently from everyone else. So I think that's a great, empowering way to end the formal part of our presentation.
Thanks, Rita. And I can pull up your contact information as well, but I'll just let everyone know if they have a question, they can send it in the chat or they can email info@savvyladies.org. And one of the questions we had come in during your presentation is asking when it's appropriate to send a LinkedIn request versus an email after meeting someone at a networking event. Can you maybe talk a little bit about follow-up there?
Sure, I absolutely can. So sometimes when I meet someone and there's time to follow up, so if you exchange business cards and you have their email address, you can certainly send them an email. You can do that. You can also look at them on LinkedIn. Now, some people don't have active profiles on LinkedIn, and other people don't allow you to message them unless you email them. When I think you can do both, just don't do them both at the same time and space them apart. So if you can tell that someone is not active on LinkedIn, send them an email. If you can tell they're active on LinkedIn, you can send a custom request, an invitation to connect, and make sure you just take the time to write 2 sentences. Dear Susan, I enjoyed our conversation at events. I look forward to staying in touch. Sincerely, So you can do both. Just don't do them both in the same day. And if you see that someone's profile isn't as active, maybe you just stick to email.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question for you is, how do I craft an elevator pitch when I'm unemployed and networking, trying to look for a position?
So no, I love this question. Someone told me this. It's all about like language. You are in between good opportunities, right? You're in transition. And if you don't want to use the word transition, because that could be confusing for people, you're in between opportunities. So what you're going to do is if you want to find a position like what you were doing, the same skills, then you can talk about those skills. But if you want to bridge and transition to something else, then the first thing I would say is work on your LinkedIn description and your skills, because when you're meeting people, you want to be able to connect with them. You want them to see your profile. So when you're meeting somebody, you can say the type of work that you do. And if you are unemployed, you just say that you are in between positions and you're looking for the next opportunity. You don't have to say you're unemployed. You can say, you know what, I'm looking for the next opportunity. If you have the ability to do freelance work, put that on there as well. The reality is people do lose jobs or unemployed for whatever reason. So focus a lot on your skills.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, I'm an introvert. I struggle with what to say to someone to start the conversation. Do you have any suggestions for something that still sounds genuine?
Sure, of course. I'm totally with you. People don't believe it when I say I'm an introvert. So if you're at an event and people are wearing name tags and you see their organization, you can say, Tom, if they work at Starbucks, like I just said Starbucks, right? Because I'm looking at my latte. I think that you know what Starbucks does, but you can, if it's another organization, you can say, tell me about your role, or how do you like, I think that's a good way. I know what you're saying. You don't want to like talk about the weather or something dumb. The other thing, so if you're at this event, is this your first time at the event? Are you a member? So those aren't necessarily as open-ended. Do you attend these events regularly? So just something to get the conversation going. But the last thing that you'd want to do to an introvert is tell them to talk about the weather, because small talk is very, very painful. That's when I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. So I hope that was helpful.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm sure it was. All right, so those are the questions we have for you, Rita. If anyone has further questions, Rita has shared her contact information here, and we will be sending this out as well if you don't have a chance to write it down. So I want to thank you so much, Rita, for presenting today, and we hope everyone will be joining us again in the future. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care. Have an awesome Wednesday.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.